Hey guys, this is Yoda. This will be my Dark Ranger BM Hunter guide for the season. Dark Ranger BM Hunter has recently gotten a massive uptick in popularity since it got buffed and people started playing it, realizing how good it is. Its main strengths are single target. You should be topping every single boss that doesn't have any ads on it. Some funnel specs will beat you if there's funnel, but if there's no funnel, you should be beating everyone, especially if you have decent gear. It's also very tanky. You play Verse as one of your higher stats, and you also have the Dark Ranger talent Smokescreen, which means you can exil or survival of the fittest, basically any mechanic that ever comes at you. Plus, you also have Turtle. Plus, you're a BM Hunter with a toughness pet. So you just have like 5 different walls, and you can access them at like very low cooldown with the exil talent. So yeah, those are the main strengths of Dark Ranger. Big single target. It also actually does pretty good AoE as well. And it's very tanky. So this is, in my opinion, one of the most fun specs. I've been playing my Hunter a lot, if you guys have seen on stream. So without further ado, we will talk about the talents. So this is my default talent build. Actually, the default talent build would have no tar trap. It would have Kodo. This talent is actually crazy in a lot of dungeons. But we won't talk about the left side too much. We'll talk about the right side mainly. I do play Wild Call and War Orders. In my opinion, this setup gives you a little bit more sustained damage. Also simmed the highest for me. Just on AoE and single target. The only difference I could gain in AoE was dropping War Orders for Master Handler. But for Master Handler to actually be better than War Orders, you would actually have to be multi-dotting with Barb Shot perfectly, which doesn't always happen, in my opinion, in a real setting, because like certain mobs are just going to die off earlier than others, or it's just hard to like get a mouse over while you're managing other utilities. And War Orders is better single target anyway, so this is my setup. With this setup, you do oftentimes, not always, get a Bestial Wrath in between your Call of the Wilds, which is why I kind of prefer it. Yeah, this is my right side setup. These Dark Ranger talents basically never change. Left side, like obviously you don't always need Poison Dispel, you don't always need Kodo. Tar Trap is kind of nice. This talent is kind of nice, this talent's okay. But yeah, there's some utility talents that you can basically change around. But do not swap out any throughput talents like this talent. Don't change that. Don't change this. Don't change this, etc. If you want, you can drop random utility talents for other utility talents. Those are all basically just going to be preference. And I'll leave you to make your own decisions there. So yeah, these are the talents I play. Stats we already mentioned. It's Haste, number 1. Burst and Crit are kind of like equal after that. And Mastery is going to probably be your lowest priority. The main reason being, if you look at my damage breakdown, almost half or more, I would say more than half of my damage is unaffected by Mastery, right? Mastery only affects your pets. So like Black Arrow, Bleak Powder, Ethereal Reaping, Black Arrow Dot, Barb Shot, all of that's not affected by Mastery. As always, you can generally trust raid bots to sim your gear for you, but a good starting point is going to be Haste, number 1, and then Verse and Crit kind of equal after that. For your trinkets, my preferred setup is the double on-use setup with Araz's Ritual Forge and Nether Prism. Basically, Call of the Wild is when you do most of your damage in the last 20 seconds. You can use it every minute. So the way this works is you would just use Araz's on the first one, and then the next one, you don't have a Ritual Forge up, so you use Nether Prism. Then the next one you have Ritual Forge, the next one you have Nether Prism, etc. The only weakness with this setup is that if all of your cooldown uses aren't good uses, which will happen a lot of the time, like for instance, the end of the pack, highest mob is 300 mil health, and you're going to travel. Well, you do want to use Call of the Wild there. Like, you don't want to like have it go to waste, but you also don't really want to use like another prism on that, or like even a Ritual Forge. But with the double on-use setup, you kind of have to use your trinket every time. If you hold Ritual Forge, then that's just your trinket being on cooldown and losing value. If you hold Nether Prism, then it's kind of a similar thing the way Nether Prism works, because the way Nether Prism works is you can cap at 18 stacks, and 18 stacks is built up roughly over 3 minutes. And the way this is working is that you use Nether Prism every 2 minutes, right? Because the first use is Araz's, then 1 minute later, Nether Prism, 1 minute use later, it's been 2 minutes, so use Araz, then etc. But if you hold your Nether Prism on a use, then basically the next time Call of the Wild comes up, you'll have 18 Nether Prism stacks, but Ritual Forge will also be off cooldown. So generally you would want to use Ritual Forge there, and then you'd have to like sit on 18 stacks until your next Call of the Wild. Not ideal. But in my opinion, the double on use is still better overall, even though that can happen sometimes. If you choose not to play double on use, then I think Nether Prism plus a passive, which the best one is Antenna, is probably your best setup. Obviously, random mythic plus trinkets like, Egg, secret technique, whatever. Those are all viable, but worse than the raid trinkets because Blizzard loves raiders. If you do end up playing that setup, then you can play. I recommend having 2 keybinds, one for Call of the Wild with Nether Prism and one for Call of the Wild without. And basically you need to use Nether Prism at least once every 3 Call of the Wilds with that setup. But you can decide to hold it like on like 2 in a row if you want to, just have 18 stacks for the next one without losing value. So that's how I play the trinket setup. For your belt, you always want to play Static Charge. Static Charge is really OP for BM because for some reason, like all of your pet abilities like Kill Command, I think even Bloodshed, don't count for reducing the number of stacks. So you just have abnormally high stacks that like other specs don't have access to from this talent, or from this belt. So it's very good. Always play this. After Turbo Boost, you will want to have like a mythic belt or whatever, but for now, we're playing this. For your weapon, I do have a crafted weapon, although this is not BIS. It's kind of just like an early season kind of thing that you do to make sure your character is a mythic weapon. Your BIS weapon comes from... let me find it. It's this. Yasam the Riftbreaker. It's from Tazavesh. You can either get it in your vault or you can get it from hard mode on Mythic. It's basically, it just has an extra effect along with being haste verse. Then you would play bracers and then maybe belt embellishment and turbo boost. For now, you would just like play a random ring or something. But yeah, right now that's my setup. For your cape, obviously, it's just haste or verse, whatever you want. You do want the boots if possible, even though mastery sucks. And for your tier set, right now I have mythic pants, but I think ideally pants is going to be your off piece, and you have this helm on mythic. My gear obviously is scuffed, so I don't have that, but yeah. All right, so that's your gear. We already talked about your talents. Next, we will talk about the rotation. So, the main priority here is that you're going to prioritize Black Arrow over literally everything. When you push Black Arrow, a lot of things happen. Number 1, you get trick shots if you have Umbra Reach, if it hits 2 or 3 or more targets. It says 2 or more, but like that's the cleave part, so it's technically 3 or more. And then you also get a proc of the Bell Tolls. You get a stack. All damage by you and your pet increased by 8%. This can go stacking like crazy. Like I've had 7, 8 stacks sometimes, which if you think about it, that's 56% damage increased, which is like ridiculous. So basically you want to prioritize. Also, sorry, I forgot to mention, we saw this earlier. Black Arrow is a large portion of your damage. It's your hardest hitting ability, and it's giving you stacks. So you really want to prioritize Black Arrow over everything. Especially during Call of the Wild. So the main gameplay you get during Call of the Wild is every 4 seconds, you get a free Death Blow proc, which what Death Blow does is it lets you cast Black Arrow. Normally Black Arrow is kill command, which means, kill shot, and it can be used over 80 or below 20 baseline. But when you get a Death Blow proc, it resets the cooldown, and you can just use it on whatever. No health requirement whatsoever. So during your Call of the Wild, your goal is to always have it on cooldown when Death Blow procs, so that you get like as many uses as possible, basically, of Black Arrow. So that's your number 1 priority. Number 2 priority is we're playing the Bestial Wrath games, the same as every other BM Hunter, where you don't have, by the way, you don't have Scent of Blood, you only have Wild Call. It's the only way you have to reduce Barbed Shot. You want to sync Bestial Wrath with Call of the Wild as much as possible. And you also want to work really hard to reduce your Bestial Wrath cooldown, so you get an extra use of Bestial Wrath between Call of the Wilds. So that means we're going to prioritize Barb Shot at 2 stacks. After Kill Shot, of course. Everything is after Black Arrow. But you're going to prioritize Barb Shot after that if Bestial Wrath is on cooldown, and you're getting 2 charges. If you're not going to overcap stacks, then you can start pushing Kill Command. If you can't push anything else, then you push Cobra Shot. And that's basically the entire rotation. It's really not that many buttons. The main game behind it is making sure that every source that you have that is possible to reset Black Arrow does not go to waste. So we'll do a sample opener. So at the start of the poll, obviously Black Arrow is available, so you're going to push it. And then you get a proc, Evan Bowstring, 15%. And I guess I get 2 procs in a row. And then we're going to push Bloodshed into this. I actually lost a reset proc there. Then Bestial Wrath, and I'm going to literally hold my global because that would have come up during the global. And we're holding global again. Then we push Black Arrow every time possible. You should, by the way, get this weak aura or something similar that tells you exactly when you're going to get a Death Blow reset. And we're holding global again. and then we push it. Basically, any time that you could potentially get a death blow reset, you're holding global for like half a second to make sure you actually are able to use it. So that's your basic rotation. Obviously, when and when not to hold global is something you're going to have to feel out. That comes a lot of experience. And it can be really annoying to play around, to be honest, but it is definitely worth doing because Black Arrow is such an important global to get as many uses out of as possible. So that's the basic rotation. Obviously, there is a little bit more in depth that you can go. Feel free to check out the Hunter Discord or whatever sims you want to get more in depth on that. But if you play that way, you will do enough damage, a lot of damage. And if you play defensively well, then that's you're basically going to be. It's basically good enough to do really high keys if you play that way. Next, we'll talk about your pets. So, as a hunter, there are 3 types of pets. And every pet has a special ability that is not related to the type of pet. So what do I mean by that? There's 3 types of pets. First, there's toughness pet, ferocity pet, and cunning pet. I don't know if it's actually called toughness pet, but basically, any toughness pet you use, which is going to be your default, is going to come with fortitude of the bear, and it's going to come with endurance training, which gives you 5% max health. This is definitely going to be your default pet. You want to be using this as for most of the time. As for which endurance pet, I think it's actually called endurance pet, you use. Right now I have turtle on by default, but that's actually wrong. You want to be using a pet that has mortal strike. So that's a lizard, for example, is one like that. If you look in my pet tab, the lizard has endurance training, so it's a toughness pet, and it also has grievous bite, which is mortal wounds. In this season of Mythic Plus, mortal wounds is actually very relevant. Especially in Halls of Atonement, like the last mini-boss, Mortal Wounds works on that guy. There's also some other random heals in Dungeon Pool where Mortal Wounds is very effective, in particular like Fish Stick and Gambit. Certain things, and Ecodome can heal. So generally you want your pet's other ability to be Mortal Wounds. Some other abilities are you can activate it to give it a shield. That was relevant in previous season when you were pet taunting a lot. You could macro the shield into your pet taunt. Some of them have random other things like slows, etc. But really, the only really relevant ones are going to be Mortal Strike and the shield. Generally, if you just default to a toughness pet with Mortal Strike, that's going to be enough. I think Spirit Mend is also available for BM Hunter, but I don't know how strong it is this season. I haven't used it since Mortal Strike and Shield, in my opinion, are just better. Your next type of pet that we'll talk about is the Ferocity pet. So right now I have a wasp. This, if you can see, it has in the pet tab, it has Mortal Strike, I believe. Predator's Thirst, it gives you Leech. Toxic Sting is the Mortal Wound. So make sure your pet has something that has Mortal Strike. If you're going to default, use this pet in every dungeon. And as we see, it is a ferocious pet. So we have Leech, and we also have Primal Rage, which is the Hunter Lust. So make sure you have one of these ready as well. If you're the only Lust in the group, you will be asked to use a Lust pet, so you can Lust. It does give you a little bit of Leech, which is kind of nice in AoE, but generally for survivability, it's going to be worse than the Toughness pet, which is 5% max health, plus the active that gives you the 20% more max health, and a heal. Alright, the last type of pet is going to be the Cunning pet, which I have as the Raptor. If you couldn't tell, I basically made my Hunter in BFA and got all these pets. But yeah, the main ability from the Cunning pet is Master's Call, which is pet freedom. This is very effective against certain things, such as in Tazverse Streets. It summons a chains on your allies or you, which you can use freedom on. Obviously on yourself, you don't really care about it because you have disengage with post haste. But freedoming random things is somewhat useful sometimes, so you should also have one of these in your repertoire. Obviously, if you do notice, I have the Raptor, which does have Mortal Wounds. You want Mortal Strike on basically all your pets by default in this season. Other seasons where you're pet taunting, maybe not Mortal Strike, but this season Mortal Strike is the best. And those are all the pets. As for utility, you do have really good utility. You have single target stun from Intimidate. You have Freezing Trap, although you have to be really careful with Freezing Trap if you're actually CCing something, because it can proc your Nether Prism, so you have to proc your Nether Prism first and then trap them. It's really annoying. One other thing, there's a lot of mobs that jump to you, such as the cats in Priory, or the cats in Streets, or just random other mobs that like to charge. What you can do, you can either you can put a binding trap on them, and then when they jump through the binding, they'll get stunned on the way to you. Or you can put a trap in front of yourself, they jump to you, they hit the trap, they don't do their whatever bleed it is, or whatever it is to you. You can also do that with Implosive Trap, which is your knock-up. So that's really useful. I believe Tar Trap with Entrapment could also serve the same purpose. But yeah, make sure you're taking advantage of all your traps. You can also stun things with air, obviously, as I mentioned, with Intimidate. You do have a knock with Bursting Shot, although you have to be really careful with this because it knocks things super far. And it's like really, it's like melee range, so the range is like really, really low on it. So yeah, that is going to be my basic guide for Dark Ranger BM Hunter. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to check out the stream. If you have any questions, you can always ask in Twitch chat. And that's it. Peace out.